Hello and good evening and welcome to yet another exciting episodes of Global Event. And we do this event mostly every month. We try to arrange and we have great speakers. We discuss on great topics here. And as you can see, today's topic is story as method, and I'm sure it's going to be a very exciting one. And we do the events from NDLI platform in association with Will's Global Foundation. But before we start with our discussion session, let me give you a very brief introduction about NDLI, and it's very important for my stakeholders and NDLI users to know that what we have achieved so far. So NDLI actually, how we have initiated it is very important because the notion was one nation should have one library. So this is how our journey began. As you can see, one library, all of India. So this was the basic idea, and we began our journey. It's almost more than 10 years, and still it's running. And then Genesis, as you can see, that's a national knowledge asset. We want to consider it as a asset, and we want to take it to the next level as an asset for the country. And as you can see that we are I mean, the pilot project that we have started, that was, in 2018, we came to existence, officially. But before that, some homeworks we were doing. And it is very important for my viewer to know that it is completely funded by Ministry of Education, and our essence of the project is that irrespective of any boundary geographical divisions, everyone should get the education, and motto is to make the education accessible, right? And we have already we are in the third phase of National Digital Library project, and we have more than uh, 3000 library professionals who have been trained by us in 33 ideal workshops across India. And we have organized international conference seminars, and very recently we had one in the month of November. And we have NDLI club, and it is very important to let you know that this NDLI club is completely aligned with Ministry of Education's desire. And the desire is that education should be activity focused education, activity based learning, and this is a platform where school, college, or any other institutions across India, across this country, can hold different sort of activities for their students and stakeholders. So as you can see that NDLI club is an online platform, right? And students can enhance their core competence skill, sharpen their skill, and their personality can develop. The more they participate in activity oriented learning, activity based learning, that helps to groom themselves. So that is the main focus. And as I mentioned that through this activity, NDLI's vast resources can be used. And this is the latest data you can see. And Maharashtra is topping the our chart since long. It's the best performing state in terms of NDLI and NDLI club. And South India, we have seen that there also our presence is very strong, very predominant, and the awareness level, if you see in South India, that is really amazing, if we compare with the other states. And as you can see that we have almost we are going to have 7000 clubs in very recently, and we are in 6700 clubs that we have set up across India. Number of online sessions, it is 825 plus, and today we have our own session in ICT Mumbai, Institute of Chemical Technology. That was our offline session that we hold in ICT Mumbai today only. And number of offline workshops, we have done 75 plus one, and today's session must be counted here. And international workshops, as you can see, it's 4, and national workshops we have done 5, and ideal workshops we have done 32. So this is how we are trying to grow day by day, and our intention is to reach out to the people, reach out to the community, and catering to the mass, because education has to be accessible to everyone, No, everybody in this country should get the education, and this is the awards and accolades that we have received in different time, and mostly during the time of COVID. The way we serve the community, the way we serve the society. See, as you can see, WSA we have got, and this is a winner. I mean, the different types of from the different types of companies, groups, we got this awards. And most importantly, as you can see, that the James Digital Award we have received in 2019, and as well as in the last year also, 2014. So, this is all about the awards, and our motion is to learn, share, grow together. And we want the country to have this digital learning, in a better way in coming days. Thank you so much. And now it's, I always feel very happy this time because I have to introduce my moderator for the show, Shujata Di, and for her support, we are able to do this session. We are able to host this session. And Shujata Di is associated with NDLI and with us specially since long. So as you can see that this is her profile, you know, just a minute. Yeah. She's trying to join us, I guess. So she has done MSc in physics from IIT Kharagpur, postgraduate in computer science and Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, CQA from Quality Assurance Institute, USA, and spent most of her career in the corporate IT sector, working with various private and multinational organizations till she finally retired from IBM as general manager. After retirement, she has been actively involved in various IIT alumni activities. Even till today, she is doing this sort of activities. And very recently, she visited IIT campus, Kharagpur campus also, and as well as voluntary activities. As I mentioned, regularly she is into this. She wants to do something for the society, and truly she is doing that. And currently, the president of Fields Global Foundation India and a board member. She has also served as a chief operating officer of NDLI. As I said, that her association with us really long, and it's my happiest moment of the session to introduce to this session Sujata Di. Welcome to this session, and now the platform is yours.
Thank you, Manali, for all those good words. Feels nice, and I do have my connection with NDLI for so long, and I cherish every moment of my association with it. So, hello everyone. Uh, I really feel honored to be introducing the speaker of today's session, Dr. Janardhan Ghosh, who himself he is a storyteller, a scholar, a performer, and too many roles all rolled into a single person. Dr. Ghosh plays the lead role in the national award-winning film Kalu Kokko. He's the creator of Kathabhinay works that blend Natya Shastra, rasa theory, indigenous knowledge systems, and interactive media. He's a creative director at OBO, an international storytelling platform. He trained under renowned mentors including Waldemar Stanisky, Wolfgang Golkoneder, and people like Badal Sharkar and Anjan Dattu from India. He has collaborated with major international institutions like the Royal Shakespeare Company, Goethe Institute, British Film Institute, Alliance Francaise, uh, and various universities. Additionally, he mentors at NMM, NCTE, and the Ministry of Education. Dr. Ghosh combines classical and contemporary art practices with a PhD in performance and spirituality. What a combination! He leads storytelling labs like Obo, Oglam, and Cultural Monks, and serves as an education officer at Madhushali Vidyapith, Jharkhand. So, welcome to this session, Dr. Ghosh, and we do look forward to having a very enriching time with you over the next 1 hour or so. So, please welcome.
Thank you, Shujata Di, for such generous introduction. Yes, please.
Okay, so storytelling has been around for so many years, right? Like in our childhood, also we heard fairy tales, stories from Thakuma Jhuli, from Mahabharata and Ramayana, and we let our imagination fly as far as they could go. However, in the current world where attention is scarce, how do we craft narratives that stick? How do we keep our young audience engaged in a story of some form? So, today we will be exploring this evolution of storytelling and how to apply the ancient Indian concept of rasa to modern communication needs, be it in research, sales pitches, or social media reels. So, Dr. Ghosh, as I know you are a great storyteller, a scholar, a performer, all at the same time. Tell me something. If the first generation of storytellers were painting on rocks by firelight, while we are now scripting holographic worlds, what has actually changed in storytelling? And what do you think has not changed at all deep inside us? What is the story behind your stories?
Thank you. A wonderful question to start with. And I feel like starting with once upon a time, which kind of creates a ripple in our minds at whatever age we are. And if you look at researchers like Professor Brunner, who is saying that narrative is basically the primal mode of thought. And it is the emotional scaffolding which actually helps us make decision. And this quality is something that has not changed. I could still smell the turmeric and hear my grandmother telling us stories from Agje Chilo to different kinds of stories from, as you mentioned, from Katha Sarit Sagar to Panchatantra, Ramayana, Mahabharata. I still remember it. But what happens is, though we consider this to be a very primal kind of a trait of human being, how do we cherish, use, or rather make that tool useful in contemporary times? Graham Swift says that we are storytelling animals. Our cognition is through stories. Our brains are wired in such a way that we can make meanings, stories, narratives. And if you see that stories has been considered to be the source or the interface for meaning making, our memories, creating our identities. Everywhere stories are there. Even in contemporary language, you see when the journalists are writing a column, and if you ask them, what are you working on? They say, we're working on a story. If you see different kinds of activities that is happening around in every sphere of our life, from a simple introduction to a very complex analysis, we find that stories are embedded in that. For when someone would say, you were introducing me, what were you telling me? You were telling a story about my life. And in my brain, the kind of neural network that was working was trying to understand this narrative through the points that you were giving. More than points, it was trying to build a story. So, what did this man do? Where was he? What was the background? Lots of things emerge in our emotions and in our mind, and there's an emotional journey associated with it. So, stories, they actually help us know who we are. They also provide answers to questions that what is happening, who this person is, why we are here. Every question is as if being answered by stories. And as I told, that our brains are wired for narrative structures. And in these narrative structures, what do we have? We have emotional sequencing. Like we are moving from one emotion to the other. And as we will go further discussing, and we'll talk about the uh, discussion of emotions in Natya Shastra by Bharata, but that we will go later. But this sequencing that is done through stories helps us remember it and again recall whenever you need to recall it. So, in our memory, there is a recent kind of a research done by Victoria Trumbull, who is saying that our memories are not in our brains. Our brains are just conduit of somewhere where this memory is, and it comes to our frontal brain, and then we kind of express it. So, where is this memory? She's saying the memory is in time. Basically, we move in time from present to past, and then if it is imaginary, you move into future. So when you are actually telling stories, you are basically moving in a track of time. That is what is happening. And so what is happening is that in time, this the kind of modules that are stored, they are stored in forms of stories. And this is where I think in modern time also how it kind of evolved. If you look at this slide, you will see the evolution in the caves of Lascaux, in the caves of even in the caves of Altamira and in Chauvet. What do we see? We see this paintings on the walls, the paintings of bulls, horses, stags, and different structures, spatial structures are done there. And there are repeated, like repeated figures of stags, horses running. So there is I think this would be the first available story that had been provided by human beings. And so this cave art, this signifies a lot of things. This might be a ritual to kind of revisit the myth again and again. It can be a textbook for the cave dwellers to know the how, the where, the when of hunting, shelter, protection. So from these cave paintings, I feel we might have moved to the orality of stories, when oral storytelling might have started, like our myths, our epics, where our bards, our rishis, our kathakars, kathavachakas, they started kind of sharing the oral story. And that still exists in our villages. But the form kept changing. And so we have like then it moved into pages, like we started writing from from Egyptian pictorial writing to modern manuscripts, novels, newspapers. But there is another kind of mid period when the writing and the physical embodiment of storytelling was again seen through television, through radio, stage theater performances, kind of storytelling machines, recorded machines which would tell stories. So it kept on evolving, and finally we come to an age where we have digital stories, we have games, memes, we have communities interacting with the stories and then transforming the story. So, like that, I feel that we have reached an age of XR, that is extended reality or augmented reality in holograms or holographic presentation, where this immersive experience is there for the listener, where the listener and the teller encounters and meets. So there is a change. So I would simply say the change is in the hardware. The form has changed. The storytelling form has changed, but the software has not changed. The cognitive mind that would recall the stories, that has not changed. Stone writing, engraving, those things might have changed. Many points might have changed, like computers, like technology. You're using lights and all. You don't have the fire. Around the fire, you don't sit. But the comprehension, the emotional journey, the cognition that takes place, that has not changed. So, what I feel is, from the caves to the studio where the film is being made, the journey has been the change in hardware and not in the software, where the comprehension, capacity, understanding, making meaning, identity, pleasure, the experience of pleasure of listening to stories, that has not changed. That is still there with our stories. That is what I wanted to share. And you also mentioned about the story of night stories. I'll briefly uh, tell you about that. Is, as I mentioned, that I still remember the tobacco smelling, because my grandmother wiped her hand on the edge of her sari, and that would be yellow, and that smell would come. And then she would tell us stories. And while she would tell stories, she would kind of prepare her that beetle, and with the beetle nuts, she would kind of work on that and put all those beetle nuts and other masala into it, and she would tell stories. So that was a very interesting performance by her. The involvement of the preparation of the beetle and the story that emerged out of it, the pauses that she took, the cadence that there was in her voice that changed, created that magic of story. It was not that lesson that came out of the story, the morality or the ethics, but it was that magical moment that she would create, would actually entice me. And it moved. I was into theater, as you have already mentioned. Great theater practitioners from the world. I got an opportunity. I was lucky to work with them, like Badulda, Onjunda, and Walzheimer Staniski, and Kolnider, Wolfgang Koldinger. So I worked with them. Then I moved into movies. I did a couple of movies, and they were very popular, and in parallel movies, experimental movies. But my main objective was to do research in stories. And through this research, I developed a thing called Katha Vinaya, and I would later kind of let you know more about it. Yes, I hope you got some uh, introduction.
Okay, so what you are saying is yes, the instincts still, we are basically storytellers, human beings. Our brains are wired that way. So that is the software part of it, which
Yeah,
remains as it is. It's just the hardware that has changed. Yeah, that
correct.
makes sense. Yeah. In fact, I was recently I went to the Bihar Museum at Patna, and
Mm,
I saw all those rock paintings,
correct.
from the caves, and that really took me back to those years and what now we see now. So that is a huge transformation. But
Correct.
yes, maybe it's just the form has changed, the story
Mm,
remains the same.
correct.
So I'm just wondering here, how do you think our communication and research will look if we treated every meeting, every lab, classrooms as a story playground instead of a report room? What kind of new truths might emerge when people actually play their data instead of just presenting it? You talked about Katha Vinay. So, does that relate to that, Katha Vinay?
Uh, y- yes, yes. So that is the kind of development. That's the research that I am still kind of working on. It's very engaging, and this is the slide where I'm talking about the new forms of storytelling. So yeah, and so we can, as you mentioned about Kathabhinaya and what is Kathabhinaya, which I am working on. How is it trying to create a bridge between the ancient storytelling art and contemporary storytelling practices? And if at all this art of storytelling or this tool of storytelling can be used in different aspects of our lives. like in our offices, in our classrooms, in places where we heal. Can we kind of use storytelling? Because this was a very potent tool to the primal, our ancestors. And they used it in so many ways. Just Sujata Di, if you think of Brutokatha, a very, very household practice of the Eastern India, in Orissa, in Bengal, even in Gujarat and Maharashtra, we have these Vrata Kathas. In South also, we have Vrata Katha. So entire India, we had Vrata Kathas in different forms. Now, how is how was that being utilized? What was the utility of those Vrata Kathas? How was it different from a generic storytelling under a tree? Or how was the storytelling different in a classroom in a Gurukul, where stories were being told? If you look at our Vedas, how Vedas emerged, the knowledge system in the Vedas filtered into Upanishads, and why India needed Puranas. I mean, why Purana emerged, and Brahmanas and Aranyakas. Why these things? Because the message in the very, very sophisticated poems of Rig Vedas was incomprehensible to common people, even people who knew Sanskrit, because of the succinct, very philosophical statements. Like if you look at Nashadiya Sutra, it is saying that in the beginning there was movement and there was stillness. So, how did movement and stillness stay together? There was light, there was no light, and there was light. How did these opposites stay together? Now, it is very difficult for a common person to understand the the kind of message that is being conveyed by these sophisticated poetries. So, what happened? Then we had filtering. It was simplified into Upanishads, and then we came in. Upanishads were very difficult because they were knowledge based. They were mostly things that spoke of knowledge. What is truth? What am I? What is existence? What happens when you die? So all these fundamental questions were being answered. Philosophy was being discussed. But then the common people need to understand that truth. And then came Puranas. So all these Puranas, from Bhagavata to the other Puranas, and Vishnu Puran, different, and then Mahabharata and Ramayana, they had this garb of story. You want to feed quinine, but you cover it with chocolate. It's like that. So the truth was required, but the truth was not acceptable. It was not comprehensible. It was not absorbable. People were not able to absorb it. So it turned into stories. So stories were. So if you look at that as an analogy and look at modern education, so that's why you see throughout Gurukul, you have lessons provided with stories. Even in kind of initial, like the books written by Vidyashagar or books written by Tagore for education. I'm not talking about novels. I'm not talking about, but the textbooks, they are filled up with stories. Why? Stories lead to understanding, comprehension. So the knowledge was passed through stories. This process can be used in contemporary times, and Kathabhinaya is trying to kind of research on this process. And there is this wonderful research done by Claudine and uh, Clooney. What they have found is the process of narrative inquiry does not give facts alone, but it engages the facts with the receivers and givers. Like it is always in a flux. It's not a static fact, it's not a static data, but the data is actually being kind of relived. It is being performed. So through narrative inquiry, we actually keep the data moving. The data is not stagnant. The data is not still. The data is moving in all directions. So, in the process of narrative inquiry, the personal stories and information in forms of stories provide very active material for research, very active material, living material for research, just not numbers. And I would definitely tell you that in a boardroom, whatever might be the figures be, like you are saying, okay, you are trying to kind of give the figures of sales, and it is like and you are showing numbers, like somebody has really scored high, and it's a very high number, but the numbers on that particular presentation or on the board or on the screen does not give you that feeling or that that kind of an impetus to stand up. But one single line based on that data, a line of encouragement, a statement which includes the person and connects it with the data, gives a kind of an impetus to that person. So once you kind of convert the data into a story, because when you are telling a statement, you are actually saying a statement to a person. So you are defining that person. You are giving a new identity to the person associated with the data, that achievement. But that achievement as a number does not affect him much. But when that number is narrated, and the person or the chief or the manager or the general manager, whoever, or the director or the CEO is actually kind of giving him a statement that this is what we have seen him doing, and this is what he has done, and this is the challenge, that itself is more than a number. So, this, even understanding the the capacity or defining the capacity of a person can be done through stories. And you see today we have these Legos. When you kind of play with Legos are being used in so many interesting and a serious play way method. They are being used in boardrooms, they are used in classrooms, they are used in so many ways. What do? Basically, with those objects, like in Natya Shastra, there is something called aharya. There are four kinds of abhinaya, that is sharirika, vachika, aharya, and satvika. In sharirika, you use your body. In vachika, you use your voice. Aharya, you are using properties. You will see in our old storytelling art practices that, like Pandavani, or baul singers who also kind of narrate stories while they sing. They are using an instrument, and the instrument is not only used to create music, but sometimes it is used as a prop. Sometimes it is used as a baby, sometimes it is Bhagavan, sometimes it is Gada, sometimes, so these properties. So through Lego, when you are using the property to define something, your identity, your hardship, your goal, your achievement, whatever you are trying to do, you are creating an interesting space for a story. So, like that, I think stories allow lower resistance from the receiver, invites a very honest and an open kind of a place for knowledge. And that is where I find that we can use this lab work of Shravana, Abhinaya, Nitya, and Prayoga in contemporary times. I might explain to you and work on this if you have a similar kind of a question for me. Yes, Sujata.
Okay, so you're talking about the lab framework. So, what happens if we craft, let's say, a pitch, demo, reel, lesson, or a healing session? Can we consciously script the journey of rasa? What do we want the audience to taste emotionally at the beginning, middle, and end? And how would that change the way we tell the story?
Yeah, so this is almost like a continuation. Thank you for having, holding the string such wonderfully, because thoughts kind of, are very dramatic and they move in all direction like grass, and very difficult to hold it
Yeah.
in a unified way. But thank you, Sujata. Yes, in a lab format, how do we use it, and how do we bring in the concept of rasa? Rasa as a theory. So, what is the process that we need to use, whether it is in classroom or a boardroom or in the healing process? Basically, I'm working at these kind of three areas with storytelling. So, the first thing is a lab. If you say it is the loop or listening, then it is act, how you are acting on it, and then you build, means you rebuild, you recreate. So how do you kind of loop, means how do you listen and store it in your smriti? So Shravana and Smriti. If you look at our, our ancient spiritual learning system, you also have Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasa. So you listen, then you think about it, and then you go deeper into it and connect emotionally to it. So here also, first you listen, be a good listener, whether you are a teacher. What happens in contemporary teaching systems, I've seen in most of the schools, they talk a lot, they try to give everything. But that's, I think the goal is to listen first. Listen to the person who is receiving you. Where is that space? So Shravana is very important. And through Shravana, you create your smriti, your memory, and then you moved into the acting part of it. That how do you remodel a class on magnetism after you have heard your students what they know about magnetism? What are their ideas about magnetism? They might have nothing. They might have very strange, fictitious, very alienated idea about magnetism. But once you've heard it, then you know where to begin. And then you try to put that forward the way you want to, the essential knowledge that you are trying to. And there you use improvisation, images, theatrical movement, storyboarding, all that. But finally, you come and see the building. The building is not the performance of the teacher. Building is where the teacher and the student come together and they create a new real Lego, a global Lego building. Like, as if I'm giving an example. So, building is when both the taker and the giver comes together and together they build it up. So, only by kind of informing the student about magnetism, the person is a listener, but having that kind of room with the receiver, with the student, that is where I think this lab works. And this is where I feel that the story as a storytelling studio can be created everywhere, whether you are having a meeting with your with your colleagues, or with your students, or with your friends, or in family also. How story lab means, I'm not considering as a very separate space, but the lab can kind of, story lab in the in the Paleolithic age was the cave where they lived, where they ate, where the fire was, where the light was. So story lab is in the classroom, in the boardroom, in the meeting place, in your room also, where you have a gathering of friends. But what happens when you tell stories is basically this experience, the experience of rasa. Rasa is is one of the greatest findings in Indian art practice, and which I would also consider to be in life itself. In Taittiriya Upanishad, it is saying that rasa vaisaha, mean rasa is that. Rasa vaisaha means rasa is that. What is that? That is that ultimate absolute experience which a human being wants to have. So if you are experiencing rasa, means you are actually experiencing Brahman. You are experiencing the absolute. That is what is saying. So in the classroom, when you are teaching, or in the boardroom, when you are interacting with your colleagues, are you kind of generating rasa? Is rasa the defining model of the experiences? What is this rasa experience? As you know, rasa is a kind of savoring. And Abhinav Gupta is saying that this savoring of tastes that we are talking about is generic. Like it is not personal, it is universal. And that is why even in Karuna Rasa, you cherish, you love it. You want to see Romeo and Juliet again and again, though the lovers are dying. You want to see Laila Majnu again and again, though they are perishing, they are leaving each other. Unrequited love. But you want to visit that again and again. Because in that sadness, in that karuna, in that bibhatsa rasa, you have an escalated experience of emotion, not normal experience of pain. Normal experience of sorrow when you suffer somebody's loss, or when you encounter death, or when you encounter pain, that is not rasa experience. That is just a kind of a emotional experience. When you add emotions to that, when you add the quality of art to it, when you make it into a piece of painting or a sculpture, or you tell a story out of it, or you are doing a theatrical performance, or a movie, or a holographic presentation, or a meme, or a kind of what you call a short, a YouTube short, what are you actually doing? You are actually creating that small, the day to day emotional experience. You are charging it with art, you are charging with that form, and giving it a rasa experience, an aesthetic experience. So what you can do now, what is happening, we are having very earlier people used to think that rasa experience takes longer period of time. That is why a kathakali performance, or a jatra, or a nataka would happen for hours, like 3 hours, 4 hours performance, and people would kind of, after their dinner, they would go, and then throughout the night they would see the performance, because rasa took time to generate. They thought that. But now we can see in small memes, in small kinds of YouTube shorts or small reels, they are so charged that the rasa experience is happening. Otherwise, why would you have that pleasure? Why would you go again and again and kind of scroll from one reel to the other? Because rasa experience is happening. You are getting addicted to that rasa. You are having that pleasant experience. So now what is to be thought of, that instead of making a classroom very boring and something like that, or a boardroom uh, experience to be something that everybody is like reluctant to say, reluctant to kind of be a part of it, and they are reticent, they won't respond. uh, but if you bring in this rasa experience, it will change, it will change the entire experience. So as a designer, when you are kind of presenting as a chief of the board or as a teacher, you look at this typical rasa arc, that where are you moving from karuna to veera to adbhuta. Like this is one model I have given, which can be, you are talking to your teachers, suppose the principal is talking to the teachers, so they start with the pain of the teachers, the problems of the teachers, evoke karuna, then move into some kinds of efforts, give them some kind of signals, or provides them with some tools which will help them solve it. And then comes this wow factor of the adbhuta, the wonder, or the shantarasa experience. If the presentation, if the total experience can be done like this, and making it at the same time very, very immersive, like it has to be immersive. So what happens? The story, the playfulness, and the kind of rasa experience that will provide, I mean, this particular canvas where you have this story, the format, which is very having visual understanding, but you are not telling story by reading out the story, but you are playfully engaging and giving the listener an immersive experience. And through that immersive experience, the entire experience raises to a rasa level, then that becomes like a, like a kind of experience which would be remembered, useful, and I think it works. It works.
Okay, that was some journey starting from storytelling to performance, playing, and finally the rasa feeling.
Absolutely.
So I understand that maybe when you were performing in in your performances, I'm sure at least you start from the play and then go into the rasa.
Correct.
And this is a concept that when I feel I am yet to absorb, because this
Correct.
is something very new that I'm hearing about, and I can see the whole journey. And going forward, I think I will be more conscious of when
Yeah.
I see a play and then how it finally evokes my emotions, my feelings, absorb, brings up those emotions. That
Yeah.
I'll keep a note of it and know, okay, this is now rasa that I've arrived at. So that was really nice. Something, as I said, very new and a very unique, new, I would say. So thank you, Dr. Ghosh, for that enriching session. A lot of learning, the theory part behind what we see, what we in plays and acting and all that.
Mm.
Now I would like to hand over to Manali now for taking questions from the audience. I think, in fact, something I missed saying right at the beginning is, audience, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box so that we can take them up and our speaker can answer those. So, do we have any questions, Manali, so far?
I believe yes.
Okay.
Already, I can see question, and I must say, Dr. Ghosh, that the concept, the rasa concept, that enlightened me so much. And indeed, I must also acknowledge the entire communication that the session we had. The way you connected with the audience, and I really got spellbound. And the entire concept is really, really very new. And
Right.
for this Gen Z generation, those who are hearing us, the students, mostly they are our target audience, they will find it very new and very interesting. So, Jayashree Kalita, we got a question from her. In what ways can the traditional concept of rasa be applied to modern uh,
Digital.
digital or immersive storytelling to shape the audiences? I can't see the next line.
Audiences.
Audience's emotional journey.
Emotional journey. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
appearing in my screen. So that's a
Uh,
lovely question.
Thank you, Jayashree, for such a thought-provoking question. What I also, because it was short of time, and so we had to kind of, cage in a lot of things there, and so I tried only a little bit that I could kind of share with you. But it's a vast kind of knowledge system, and the traditional, story that we have is very rich. Uh, Actually, one thing I forgot to tell you, that through rasa experience we also have the neural coupling where the listener and the kind of teller, the performer, they are connected. A kind of neural framework is constructed when you are performing a story instead of just providing material. As you said, the traditional concept of rasa, how is rasa created in Natya Shastra? There is a sloka which is saying Vibhava, Anubhava, and Vyabhichari Bhava. So Vibhava, Anubhava, Vyabhichari Bhava, Samyoga, Rasa Nishpattihi. Rasa is created by the combination of Vibhava, Anubhava, and Vyabhichari Bhava. These three bhavas come to the Samyoga, comes together to generate rasa. So, in a modern digital or immersive storytelling, what do we need for rasa? Is Bibhava. Bibhava, what is Bibhava? Bibhava is an emotion that is created through some signals, different kinds of hints. Krishna is absent, so Radha is sad. And Radha finds that there is the feather of the peacock lying down there. The feather of the peacock is reminding Radha of that, that distance, the absence of Krishna. She remembers. So that acts as a vibhava, the feather. It is a it is actually kind of provoking that emotion in Radha. So what we need in a digital or immersive storytelling, what happens when you see a reel or when you see a short? There are moments which are vibhavas, which are like triggers, which trigger the emotion you. And when that emotion is triggered, then you feel it in your body. That becomes embodied as a receiver. That emotion, which is generated by maybe a handkerchief or maybe a memory, maybe some sweet moment that Radha might have spent with Krishna, that memory are the triggers which generate that emotion. What happens when you see a reel which takes me back to my memories, to my emotions, to my daily life, to different things that is happening around me, but I am unable to see that in a very general, in a very, very common kind of mundane work, daily chores, but that kind of connects me, that triggers that emotion. And so I have this anubhava. And when I have this anubhava, then I have small vyabhichari bhavas. I get excited, I get sad, I feel something different, I fall in love, I do all these kind of smaller emotions are generated. And these three together, the vibhava, the anubhava, and the vyabhichari bhava together would create an experience for the audience or for the listener or for the student or for the board members, and that will create an emotional journey for the receiver. But this only happens with who is a rasika, one who has the sense of rasa. If you don't have that sense of rasa, then you won't be able to is it clear, Jayashree? I get it. Sure. So, in kind of, contemporary practices of digital art, in contemporary practices of, creating augmented realities, creating, extended realities, mixed realities, you are trying to create these provocations, this triggering. This is required to create that emotional state and go into that rasa level.
Thank you so much for this wonderful explanation. And I think our audience, she has got the answer she was looking for. And now, Shonali, she's again with a very interesting question. How do Puranic narratives use cyclical time and cosmic events to shape storytelling? And how can this structure inspire contemporary narrative design?
Wonderful. Thank you, Sonali. And basically, Indian storytelling is almost like in a form of a cycle. It is even Ruth Sawyer, a British storyteller, said that once the story is told, the story dies. Means after telling the story dies. Then what happens? Then again, the story is reborn when you retell the story. The story gets a new life. And you have this cyclical thing in all our narratives. You will see that in Ramayana, who is telling the story? You will see Shiva, Valmiki telling a story. That goes to Lava and Kush, who is telling a story, and that is being narrated. So Narada is telling the story. Narada then tells Valmiki. Then Valmiki tells it to Lavakush, and Lavakush is telling it to Rama. So there is a kind of the story is again dying and again being reborn. Same it is with Mahabharata. Same it is with Katha Sarit Sagar. So many tellers are there, and every teller is a Brahma. Every teller is a creator, and he uses those material, but creates his or her own story. So the Puranic narratives, you will find this cyclical structure of being reborn and again dying, again the birth, rebirth is there. And this Indian concept of circles in our lives, in our philosophy, in our concept of birth and death, karma and prarabdha, everywhere you find that. It is there in our storytelling also. And that is why you find that in whenever narrative design, like research, if you look into narrative inquiry or narratives, as I was speaking about, in digital storytelling or cinema, or in small digital short films, or definitely immersive experiences like holograms and all, what do? We look at the creation, and then we look at the ending, and then we look at the recreation of the story again. So if you have that concept in mind when you are writing a script for a film, that my story doesn't end with the end of the film, it continues through the kind of my viewers, and then again gets a rebirth, but not as a form of a film, but it might be born as a story. Or it is, and all great stories from great writers, from Shakespeare to Bernard Shaw to Rabindranath Tagore to Bankim Chandra, you see this cyclic order of the recreation that is happening to their stories. And all essential stories, if you see all love stories, they are not, the concept essentially is that circular emotions are moving in the same circle. The narratives, the characters are changing. What it is with Romeo and Juliet, it is same with Laila Majnu or Heer Ranjha. But the emotional journey is the same. Events are different, characters' names are different, but that is having a cyclical role. So we need, in our classical work, we need to look into this cyclical structure of stories also in time, in the spatio-temporal, matrix. We need to place emotions and create stories.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ghosh, for your uh, answer to this question. And now, just I want to see whether we have any more questions or not. No, it doesn't seem like that we have any more questions. Yeah. So now I would like to, ask Sujata Di to, let our audience know about Wheels Global Foundation, their activity, and what exactly they want to accomplish, for the society. Sujata Di.
Thank you, Manali. As we all know, this event is organized by the National Digital Library of India in collaboration with Wheels Global Foundation. Wheels Global, it's actually an organization that was created by the alumni of all the Indian Institutes of Technology as a non-profit organization. The whole thing started when our earlier president, like Abdul Kalam, he threw a challenge to the alumni in a Pan IIT event in the year 2006, where he said, "You IITians have done so well for yourselves. Now, why don't you do something to solve the bigger problems of rural India?" And that's when the alumni of all the IITs, they came together and formed this Wheels Global Foundation. And now we have come a long way from there. And now we not only IIT alumni, but we have doctors, we have lawyers, we have other professionals, part of our family. The objective is very simple. It is to use the IIT system and the huge network of IIT alumni put together, and you apply technology to solve problems of the people, the rural people, the people who are underserved, not so fortunate as us. WHEEL stands for Water, Health, Education, Energy, Livelihood, and Sustainability. Basically, all the strokes that touch our lives. We are all volunteers here. We try and do a little bit whatever we can do to give back to the nation, to the society in our own way. And now we have taken up a mission of touching the lives of 20% of the rural community by 2030. And we are sure that not just reaching, but we will be able to exceed this mission, this target by the year 2030 in giving back to the society as such. So here, if anybody is interested in volunteering your services, you're most welcome to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to have you on any of our projects of Fields Global Foundation. With this, I would like to hand over back to Manali.
Thank you, Sujata Di. Thank you for this wonderful session. And Dr. Ghosh, again, I must say that the discussion the session we had, that's really, that will have long impact, at least, in my mind, that I can tell you. And thank you so much again for your time. I know you remain busy. I know your schedule and how Sujata Di managed everything, and we fix up today's date. Thank you so much for your time. And Sujata Di, this global event is possible as because you were there and you were helping us, from the core of your heart. Thank you for being with us throughout
Thank
our
you.
journey. And uh, biggest thank to my audience
To
who
the
are with
audience.
us, and my students, stakeholders, those who are associated with NDL, and also Wheels Global Foundation. Thank you so much, and I'm closing today's session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Manali.